One.
All right. So, first and foremost, I want to say call, halal, abanaw Yahweh by Hashem Hamashiach Yahushai. So I praise it to our Heavenly Father in the name of who the world inwardly calls Jesus Christ. This is Yahusab Ban Yahusab here with the brother Azam Awath. And we are about to pretty much go into a short, well, we'll try to make it a short lesson, going over the topic of chariots, angels, UFOs, these names, these titles, and what they have in common and how they are all one and the same, pretty much, from a biblical perspective. So I just wanted to bring out some information just to begin with. Am I coming out all clear on that side, bro?
Yeah, you good.
I just wanted to bring out some information on the wiki real quick about flying saucers, right? Because this is something that we're going to be bringing up pertaining to UFOs, right? So it says a flying saucer, also referred to as a flying disc.
You want to pull it up on yours?
Say again?
So you want to pull it up on yours?
Oh, yeah, I'm sharing my screen right now.
We don't see it.
You don't see it? Okay. Yeah. Let me put it up on mine real quick. Thought I was sharing it. Yeah, you gotta allow me to share it real quick.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Let's see. All right. Go ahead.
You can see my screen?
It's about to start loading. Yep, you're good.
Kind. So, as I was saying, a flying saucer, also referred to as a flying disc, is a descriptive term for a supposed type of flying craft having a disc or saucer-shaped body, commonly used generically to refer to an anomalous flying object. The term was coined in 1947, but has generally been supplanted since 1952 by the United States Air Force term unidentified flying objects. Right? That's what the acronym UFO stands for, as it says, or UFOs for short. Early reported sightings of unknown flying saucers usually described them as silver or metallic, sometimes reported as covered with navigation lights or surrounded with a glowing light hovering. I'm going to read that again. Sometimes reported as covered with navigation lights or surrounded with a glowing light hovering or moving rapidly, either alone or in tight formations with other similar craft and exhibiting high maneuverability. Right? Now, I have this book in front of me. It's called Ancient Aliens, the official companion book from the producers of Ancient Aliens, the TV series that came out on the History Channel not too long ago. I want to bring something out in this book. In the way in the back of the book, and I'll bring it out real quick. All right, bear with me. This is the Battle over Nuremberg. This is page 182 to 183. Right. It says, at dawn on the morning of April 14, 1561, citizens in Nuremberg, Germany, awoke to what was later described in a local news flyer as a very frightful spectacle. Perhaps disturbed from their slumber by the strange noises coming from overhead, they stumbled out of their houses to discover unidentifiable objects in the sky, engaged in what appeared to be an aerial battle. The entire event was memorialized in a broadsheet, which is the 16th century equivalent of a newspaper that still exists today in the Zurich Central Library. The broadsheet account includes a famous woodcut illustration depicting the incident. The library also displays a woodcut of an almost identifiable identical sighting in Basel, Switzerland in 1566. The woodcut advised people to repent for sins and interpreted the extraordinary events as signs from God. We're going to be going over that as well. Many of the witnesses used religious imagery to explain the objects they had seen, describing crosses flying in the sky, an image strikingly reminiscent of Emperor Constantine's famous vision of a fiery cross, which inspired him to declare Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. Though we may tend to think of UFO sightings as distinctly modern phenomenon, which is what we're going to show in a minute here, because only recently have people begun to take this seriously, as we're going to see stated by, or we're going to see that it's something that we need to take seriously now in this time, which is something that's going to be stated by the news reporter in the video that we're going to show next, right after I'm done reading this. It says, incidents like the sighting over Nuremberg is shockingly common, going all the way back to antiquity, from Roman orator and senior senator Marcus Tullius Sicarios, or Ciceros. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name correctly, right? But we know he was a Roman orator and senior senator. His account of witnessing a bright spherical object appearing in the sky and then dividing into several smaller spheres, to Christopher Columbus's recording of a UFO sighting in law books of the Santa Maria, to 19th century Japanese testimonies of encounters with a strange craft, which seemed to link to one of the single most documented sightings of all time. The late 20th century incidents in Rendlesham Forest, halfway around the globe in the United Kingdom, right? So that's just a small piece of what this book talks about, right? And it goes into it pretty much later on, like as you read on it actually goes into how, you know, these unidentified flying objects, these UFOs, have intervened in human affairs throughout history at different points in time, and for what almost seemed like no reason at all, from the worldly perspective. But we're gonna go into why we see these things as we go into this lesson, right?
I
But
got a precept on
just
that.
for an example of what we're talking about looks like, I'm gonna go ahead and let Azam share his screen real quick, and he's gonna show the video.
And tell me if you can hear it, all right?
Kind.
Oh, no cap. What the fuck? What?
Can you hear it?
Bro, what?
Yeah, I see it. I hear it too.
You see this shit?
Well, for decades, only crackpots and crazy people believed in UFOs. That's what I thought anyway. And then in recent years, it turns out that governments have been taking them seriously all along. Very seriously. Nick Pope is a journalist who has spent years researching UFOs for the British government. He says that UFOs aren't just real. They also frequently come close to president. Other things. Nick Pope joins us tonight. Nick, thank you very much for coming on. So it's really not a question of, do governments believe UFOs are real? Yes, they do. The United States government does. The British government does. The question is, do they have any idea what they are, where they're from?
Well, we don't. We keep an open mind on it. We don't rule anything off, take nothing off the table with this. Our point really is that whatever these things turn out to be, there is a...
And you'll notice, like what you saw just before this part of the video, where they're showing this clip, the last clip they just showed, in the clouds, it was like a flying saucer, right? Something shaped like a flying saucer. What was described and what I read in Wikipedia concerning flying saucers or these flying discs. And the clip before that, it didn't look like flying saucers. It looked like stars and like a whole bunch of stars or balls of light in formations, right? We're going to go into explaining why, or how pretty much, and why these UFOs appear in these different ways from a biblical perspective later on as well. But that's just something I want y'all to pay attention to as well before we go into the biblical part of it. But go ahead.
I got a quick precept on that. Being like a flying saucer. All right, and as the brother's about to explain how they can take on many different shapes, right? In Zechariah chapter 5:1, he says, "Then I turned and lifted up my eyes, and behold, and look, behold, a flying roll." All right.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that was that Zechariah saw, man. The flying roll. Of course, it wasn't a flying sheet of, some biblical text, some rolls of, or scrolls. This is the chariot of the Lord he saw. All right. Well, let's keep going back into it.
Defense, national security, and safety issue here.
Yes. Well, so that's kind of another bit, and that's where my interest comes from. So why aren't governments encouraging the population to, as they say about terrorism, if you see something, say something, report sightings to the government so we can make sense of this potential threat?
Well, they should be, and that's what we certainly did at the Ministry of Defense for many years.
What's crazy is he's saying that, but I mean, even if you report sightings of these things as a potential threat to the government and the world, what are they going to do about it?
What they going to do?
What are they going to do about these things that are in the sky? Because they've been seeing them for years throughout history, and they've done nothing about it. It's kind of just been one of those things that it's kind of just been one of those things that you see and you're terrified by the sight of it, right? It's caused trauma in the side of the side of the beholders. But no matter how mighty the man was that saw these things, because even Alexander the Great saw these things during the siege of Tyre in 332 BC. He couldn't do anything. He had a whole army with him.
That's just that God complex that Esau got, man. You know what I'm saying? He wants people to put their faith and trust in him that he's going to protect and save them. When Esau, the Bible says in Jeremiah 49, in those days, Esau's heart is going to be turned into a woman's heart, man.
Exactly. Right?
Esau can't do a damn thing about the chariots of the Lord, man, and they know it.
Mm-hmm. And though they're afraid, they're going to try to fight back, but they still going to be wiped out, right?
Mm-hmm. And God is the one that's going to put that spirit inside of them to continue to try to fight back. Just so you know,
exactly.
so he could flex. Just how he flexed, just how he put that spirit in Pharaoh, hardened Pharaoh's heart, right? Just to aggravate Pharaoh, just so he could display his mighty, man. Display his might and power.
Exactly. And this was going on during they had UFO sightings that were reported during World War II. That were being reported to the military by the Air Force. By this time, they were fighting up in the sky. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if they couldn't do anything about it then, and now they're still in this day and age, they're still talking about if you see these things, report the sightings as a potential threat to the government, right, or the world. I mean, even if you report these sightings, what is it going to do? When we just look at how we've been handling this throughout history, it seems like all we can do is look and hope to God that, be amazed and hope to God that it's not for our own destruction.
Hope to God that it's not an angry black man inside of it.
Exactly. But go ahead, Doa.
Very seriously, our own pilots were seeing these things. We were having radar operators track them. And we knew, again, through intelligence and through open source material, we knew that the Russians and the Chinese and others were working on this too. The problem was that just the pop culture baggage from the term UFO, flying saucer, little green men, people don't take it seriously, but they should.
People would have asked you.
I think this part is just a whole lot of talking. So
All right.
we can pause here and get right into the Bible, right?
All right.
But concerning what we're seeing here in this footage and what was talked about earlier, I'm going to go into the flying saucers first, right? So in Ezekiel, we actually see these flying saucers being talked about, right? If you want to pull that up on a blue letter, or you want to pull it up on a blue letter?
What you want to pull up?
Ezekiel chapter 1, right?
Oh, okay.
Ezekiel chapter 1, because in Ezekiel, we see these flying saucers or discs that are described in Wikipedia and that was shown in the video footage in one of the clips. We see these things being talked about by Ezekiel the prophet. It's something that he saw, right? So just start off at 4 and 5 to get a little bit of context of what's being talked about here.
This is Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 4. And I
Uh-huh.
looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself. Brightness was
Right.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
Brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, and out of the midst of fire.
Right.
Go ahead.
So Ezekiel is explaining this the best way that he can. We have to understand this, right? When Ezekiel saw this thing, you know, and he described it, the scribe that wrote down what he saw wasn't going to put UFO. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to put that. He's not going to put down flying saucer, right? What we're seeing here, what we're reading here is Ezekiel's best description of what he's seeing, right? And
And look where he said,
he saw, huh?
No, I was
He
just about
saw
to
a
say,
whirlwind. Go ahead, though.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, what were you still?
Well, yeah, I think he's about to cover it.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much, he's saying that he saw a whirlwind come out of the north. A whirlwind. He saw a whirlwind, right? Like a tornado.
Mm-hmm.
A whirlwind come out of the north. A great cloud and a fire enfolding itself, right? A fire enfolding itself. And a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire.
I find it interesting where he said that he saw the whirlwind come out of. He said out of the north.
Uh-huh.
What's the land of the north according to the Bible? Babylon.
Uh-huh.
Because, you know, this is more likely the spirit having him envision, right? Modern day America, right? This is why in Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 7 says, therefore, behold, the days come, said the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country. He said he saw the north, he saw the whirlwind come out of the north.
Right? Out of the north.
Oh.
All right. We're gonna talk about that. Right? But going on to verse 5 though.
Verse 5. Also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and every one.
So hold on real quick, So we're gonna stop at verse 5 real quick and jump to verse 15 and read all the way through 21. But real quick, it says, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness out of the mist, right? Of that colored, that amber in the right in the midst thereof. came the likeness of 4 living creatures. So something came out of this thing, had the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. So it's about to describe what these living creatures came out of when we go when we skip down to verse 15 and read through 21.
All right, verse 15 says, now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces. The appearance
All right,
of the
so there's a wheel. Go ahead, though.
The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of a beryl, and they
All right, so the wheels themselves was like unto the color of beryl, right? Go ahead.
and they 4 had one likeness, and their appearance
And they 4 had one likeness, and what was their appearance?
and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel.
It was as a wheel in the middle of a wheel, right? So let's think about that. A wheel in the middle of a wheel, right? Sounds like a flying saucer. That flying disc that was being described earlier, right? A UFO, right? This is what he's saying. This is what he's describing. We're going to see that image start to manifest even more in the description that he gives of this thing as you read on. But go ahead.
Verse 17, when they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went.
Right? They showed high maneuverability, right? There were no steering motions. Go ahead.
There's just zipping and zapping. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful.
As for their rings, right? Talking about their wheels. Now it's describing them as rings. Go ahead.
And their rings were full of eyes round about them 4. And when the living creatures, and when
the rings had eyes around them is what's described. How Ezekiel is describing these wheels inside of a wheel, right? The ring of these wheels had eyes inside of them, right? Sounds exactly what Wikipedia describes as a flying saucer, right? In the form of a UFO, right?
You ready?
Go ahead, though. We're going to talk about what those eyes are in a minute, though. Go ahead.
All right. Verse 19, and when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them, and when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up.
All right, go ahead.
Whithersoever the spirit was to go, they
now
went.
It's referring to the living creatures as a spirit. We're going to make sense of it all. Go ahead.
Wheresoever the spirit was to go, they went. Thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them. The
wheels were lifted up over against these spirits, over them. Right? Go ahead.
The spirit of the living creature was in the wheels.
For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels.
When those went, these went. And when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels.
Right? So we can see that these living creatures, right? The spirit of the living creature that's being described here in Ezekiel, they use these wheels to pretty much as transportation, as a method of transportation. Right? Now, in the Bible, we hear about chariots, right? We hear about chariots in the form of back in that time, for the most part, it was a form of transportation that was operated by horses, pulling pretty much carriage-like mechanisms, right? And this is how people were transported, if not on horseback or donkey back or on elephants at even some points in time in antiquity, right? Now, being that they referred to that form of transportation as chariots at that time, if they seen something that was used as a method of transportation in the air, it seemed like they would have described it the same way. They would have called these things chariots, right? And that's what these things are called. And the things inside them, it says the spirit of the living creatures. What these really are angels. And we're about to bring that out real quick. We're about to bring both of those things out through the Bible, through the spirit. So give me Psalms 104, verse 1 real quick.
All
right.
This is Psalms 104, verse 1. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord, my God, thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters, who maketh the clouds his chariot.
He maketh the what his chariot?
Clouds his chariot.
He makes the clouds his chariots, meaning his method of transportation. And we're going to see how he makes them his method of transportation in a minute, but keep going.
Who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh his angel spirits.
He maketh his what spirits?
Angel spirits.
He makes his angels spirits. So the spirits of the living creatures that Ezekiel was talking about, those spirits that are inside of the wheels, which we understand to be UFOs, what people call UFOs nowadays, right? Flying saucers, flying discs, right? Those are angels that are inside of these things, right? What people would call aliens, right? From a worldly view, right? We would see them from a biblical perspective as angels that are operating these things and using these things as a form of transportation. Now it says in verse 3 that the Most High, he makes the clouds his chariot, right? And I asked the question, how does he make the clouds his method of transportation? Because that's what a chariot is. It's used as a method of transportation, right? Just like these wheels are used as a method of transportation in Ezekiel for the angels. We're going to see how he makes the clouds his chariot. Give me a Psalm 68 and 17.
Psalm 68 and 17. Chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands.
Right? It says the chariots of God are 20,000. Go ahead.
Even thousands of angels. The Lord is even thousands of angels.
Even thousands of angels, right? So the chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels, right? So we saw in Psalms 104 and 3 how it says the Most High God, he uses the clouds as his chariots, his form of transportation. Now it's saying here that the chariots of God are 20,000, even thousands of angels. How is that so? Because the angels of God, right, they use these chariots as a form of transportation, right? Now we can see in scripture these chariots being described in different forms and shapes, just like we can see video evidence of these UFOs being described and being seen in different ways, right? But in the scriptures, it adds to that, and it says not only are these things seen as, balls of fire in the sky, as sometimes, and not only are these things seen as flying saucers, but these chariots that these angels are traveling in can also appear to be clouds. Is what the Bible
balls
gives.
Of fire, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna play a quick video, real quick. But hold your thought. Yeah, hold your thought since we're on the topic of balls of fire.
Okay.
We had some brothers from GMS Dallas. They saw a ball of fire, which is a chariot. And that's I got this audio work played. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen? Hey, y'all, what's up?
Yeah, go ahead. What's up? You was asking me a question?
Y'all saying if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
So this is GMS Dallas. They get visited by the chariots of the Lord. It's September 27th.
I got it. Call on y'all, my shit outside, y'all. Call on y'all, my shit outside, bro.
You can hear these brothers, man. You can hear these brothers just shouting for joy, man. All their labor, brother. Like all their labor, they're starting to, you know what I'm saying? They're getting a glimpse. That's a little glimpse, man, of encouragement from Yahweh, man, for them to continue to push. And you can hear them just start to scream and start crying, man.
I swear, bro. I'm in tears, bro. You better get out of here, bro.
Man, you hear the brother saying he's in tears, man. He's in tears, bro.
I'm gonna get out of here, bro. We're gonna get out of here, y'all. Call on y'all, my shit outside. Call her law, bro. Call her law, Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, brother. GMS Dallas. We finna get out of here. Call on Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, brother. Call on Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, brother. Oh my God. I got the video. I Bro, brother. Oh my God, bro. It's up there. It's up there, brother. It's up there, brother. Bro, they flew over us. We was over there.
Hey, better right there. Yeah, two of them.
Bro. Oh, y'all, bro. Yo, Rocket Yahweh shine. The Lord is showing out.
You see how them brothers are excited about seeing that thing? You see how they're excited about it? They're glad. They're rejoicing. So much that they're in tears. Right? That's what the truth does for you, man. Because like Paul said in Romans 8 and 28, we know that all things worketh for good to those who are let me get that real quick. This is Romans 8. This is Romans 8 and verse 28. It says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose, right? This is something that we know, right? And knowing that these brothers know what's good, right? They know what the love of God is according to 1 John 5 and 3, right? Like it says, 1 John 5 and 3. It's written, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous, right? So the love of God is keeping his commandments. And Paul said, and we know that all things, right? All things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. This is something that we know. So when you see those brothers rejoicing when they see these chariots, right? It's not something that they see and they're afraid, and because it's Isaiah talks about that in Isaiah 33, right? About how the sinners in Zion are afraid, right? The sinners in Zion are afraid because they don't know what's going on when they see these things, right? They're dismayed like the heathens are, right? But the Most High's instruction to us, as we can see in Jeremiah the Most High's instruction, he says in Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 1 and 2, he says, hear ye the word which the Lord speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen. And in saying that, he describes how to do that, right? He says, and be not dismayed, meaning afraid at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them, right? Just like we saw the news report, right? The heathens are, when they see these things, when they see the UFOs, they think it's a threat to society, right? They think it's a threat to their government, right? But when we see these things, it's supposed to be a different story. Why? Because we know that all things work for good to those who love, to those who are called, right? According to the purpose of God, to those that love him as well, right?
I got some.
And we in this truth who know who we really are, we know the Most High told us not to be dismayed at the signs of heaven, right? So when we see these things, we rejoice because we know it's for our own good. That's if we're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
But back to the
I got a quick.
Back to the point I was making before, right? And like the brother just showed, you can see these things appear in the video. It appears to be balls of fire, to be like stars that are.
I got a quick little preset real quick.
Go ahead, I'll bring it up.
Yeah, because a lot of our people, you know what I'm saying, like it's nothing new. Like just how a lot of our forefathers, you know, back in the times of when we were getting salvation out of Egypt and Mount Sinai and all that, going through the wilderness, they didn't trust in the salvation of the Most High, right? And a lot of our people, even in Israel, they don't trust that these chariots is our means of salvation, man. They think that this is just some hoax still, man, you know? And the Lord, he ain't dealing with men and women like this, right? You need to have faith in what your mechanism and what that vehicle of transportation is to get your ass out of Babylon, right? This is why we're doing videos like this, to educate our people, to let them know through scripture, showing them scripture, look, this is your means of transportation, because if you're not sure about this, he's not going to save you out of this. You have to know that this is how you're going to be saved, right? This is your vehicle, right? Let me get this. This is Psalms chapter 78, verse 21. Therefore, the Lord heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Jacob, and anger also up against Israel, because they believed not in God and trusted not in his salvation. They didn't trust in the salvation, man. And of course, we get salvation through Yahushua, because he's in the midst of those chariots, commanding those angels where to go, right? But our vehicle of salvation,
didn't trust in himself, succor them, right, and redeem them.
Our vehicle of salvation are those chariots, man. All right.
Exactly. And like it says in Isaiah 33, and where's that at? I think it's verse 6. I gotta read it down here.
I got Isaiah 33:6.
Yeah, it's Isaiah 33 and 14.
Oh, 14.
And 14.
Okay.
It says, the sinners in Zion are afraid. Right? That's really, if you were Israelite during the time of our redemption out of this captivity, when that starts to come to pass, that process starts to happen in which we're redeemed out of this place. If you haven't been doing the right thing, if you ain't been showing that the love to God that he requires you to show to him as an Israelite, you're going to be afraid when you see these things, because from the worldly perspective, it's going to look like an alien invasion. It's going to look like Independence Day. I mean, there's no way around. There's no way you can get around that type of understanding of what Christ described him coming back would be like.
Right.
We're going to get into that, right? What Christ literally, when he talked about him coming back to gather his elect, the way he described that happening from the worldly perspective, that would be seen as an alien invasion. That wouldn't look like something normal that you've ever seen in your life. You're going to think it's the end of the world when you see something like that, right? We're going to touch on it, but
Well, it is.
I want to bring this out. Huh?
I said it is the end.
Yeah, and it's pretty much going to be the end, right?
Yep.
But you're going to think it's, as an Israelite, you're going to think it's the end of you. If you're not, you know what I'm saying? If you're not doing the right thing. If you're not doing what's required of you when he comes back. But, you know, pertaining to what the brother showed in that video footage, like I said, these things can appear to be clouds, these chariots, they can appear to be flying saucers, and they can also, you know, appear to be balls of fire, like in the video. And Ezekiel also described those same wheels to have that appearance at some point in his vision, right? If you can go back to like Ezekiel chapter 1 and 13, right?
All right.
Because he describes this. And we know this is what he describes because you can see it being talked about later on in what's called the New Testament writings, right?
Ezekiel
but
1,
first,
13.
Ezekiel 1 and 13.
Says, as for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire.
Their appearance was like burning coals of fire. Have you ever seen a burning coal in a fire before? That thing lights up. Their appearance is like burning coals of fire. Go ahead.
And like the appearance of lamps.
Like the appearance of lamps. Go ahead.
And it went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright.
It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright. Go ahead.
And out of the fire went forth lightning.
And out of the fire went forth lightning. And that's describing the method, the speed in which it traveled, right? Because you can read down to verse 14 and it talks about it.
And the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning.
Right, that's how fast these things moved. It was as the appearance of a flash of lightning. One moment you see it, and then out of nowhere it's just gone.
Yep. And a lot of people that's thinking of, like, when they look in the sky and they see a shooting star, man, a lot of times those be chariots. A lot of times those be chariots. I just saw one like 2 weeks ago. I was on the phone with Brother Nakawon, and I was getting some groceries out my car, and I looked around like I guess the Lord just had me to fix my eyes upon the sky, right? And next thing I know, I just saw the so-called shooting star, and it just went away, man. But I know what that was. That was a chariot.
All right, but check this out though. Go to because those wise men that was sent to Herod in the days of Christ after his birth, they described this. They described seeing the same thing, right? Go ahead, Matthew 2 and 9 real quick. They saw the same thing that Ezekiel saw right here in his vision.
Matthew 2 and 9. They had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star, which they saw in the east.
The star, which they saw in the east, right? Go ahead.
Went before them. Till it came and stood over where the young child was.
Right. So you think about it, right? Like,
that looked just like, I said, that looked just like the star that we saw in GMS video, man.
Exactly, right? So you think about it, that these wise men, they described seeing a star that they saw in the east, and it went before them, it moved, and then it came and stood over where Jesus was as a child. This thing didn't just shoot across the sky and disappear like an ordinary shooting star, right? This thing moved across the sky and then was just pretty much hanging over where Christ was. It showed them the way to where he was. What they're describing, and that shows you what they're describing there isn't just a star. It's not just it's not literally a star. They're just describing it the best way they can describe it. Just like Ezekiel was describing those UFOs the best way he could describe it. Right? Now, back in Ezekiel, in chapter 1 and 18.
Look what it says in verse 10. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy, just like our brothers from GMS.
Wise men.
This is what
that's what wise men do when they see these things.
Yep.
When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. Those brothers from GMS, they started crying. That's how joyful they was. They started praising the Most High God. Ba'ashima Mashiach Yahushua, right? That's a wise man's reaction. There's nothing new under the sun. You see how that you see how that wise saying even applies.
Bro, don't count me, but I believe it was 3 of them in that video as well. I believe it was. I had to look at the elder's video, but he talked about them. I believe it was 3 of them. Hey,
see, hey, nothing new under the sun, right?
Oh.
But back in Ezekiel chapter 1 and 18. In Ezekiel 1 and 18, right? Because I said we was going to go into this, into what these eyes are actually describing here. It says, as for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and the rings were full of eyes round about them 4, right? So, and it's talking about those 4, pretty much all 4 of those wheels he saw inside of a wheel. All 4 of them had 4 eyes, pretty much. All round about the wheels, which are being described as rings here in Ezekiel 1 and 18. Now, what these are, or what they're used as, is pretty much like a surveillance system for the Most High, right? And he uses these chariots that they travel in, these angels that they travel in, as pretty much a surveillance system to watch over the inhabitants of the earth, pretty much. And we can see that being talked about in Zechariah 4 and verse 10, if you want to bring that out. And these things are being described as the eyes of the Lord in this place, right? But go ahead.
Zechariah 4 and 10. For who had despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel in those 7. They are the eyes of the Lord which run to and fro through the earth.
Right? So he's saying that there's eyes of the Lord that run to and fro through the earth, through the whole earth, right? Right. So the eyes that it's describing here being as the eyes of the Lord is actually those eyes that are surrounding those wheels in which the angels travel in, right? And we can see how he uses these eyes to pretty much pull surveillance on the inhabitants of the earth, right? Even in today's time, and to watch over them.
Man, Most High cold, bro. Oh man.
Now, going into how these chairs pretty much turn from a cloud, and they turn into, balls of fire, and then into pretty much flying saucers. And why this change is needed, pretty much that what I'm going to explain here is pretty much that is determined pretty much by what means the Most High is planning to interact with the inhabitants of the earth, or interfere with human affairs, and what would help us best perceive these things at what time, right? Because you can see an example of this in Exodus chapter 13, verse 20 to 22. You can see an example of these things, right?
Exodus 13, verse 20. And they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And Yahweh went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud and led them the way.
Pillar of a cloud. He went before them by day in a pillar of the cloud, right? Go ahead.
And to lead them by the way, and by night in a pillar of fire.
So we can see that this cloud went before them by day, right? Because clouds are out in the daytime, right? That's something normal to see in the daytime. Clouds, right? Outside. When you look up right now, you're not gonna see no stars if you outside, except the what they would count as the star, which is being the sun. Except that, right? But for the most part, when you're in the daytime, you would see clouds outside for the most part. Like if you're gonna see something other than the sun in the sky. So he used a pillar of a cloud to lead them by day, would make sense. And then by night, he used a pillar of fire, right? Because it's nighttime. You can hardly see clouds at nighttime. All right, go ahead. Depending on what type of night it is, but go ahead.
He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people.
All right. So it appeared to be fire at nighttime, of course, clouds in the daytime. But what I also want to go into from this point is that they're being described as pillars, right? Now, these pillars, we can also see in another place, these same pillars that are being talked about right here are described as ladders in the vision by Jacob. It's described as a ladder. Can you give me that in Genesis chapter 28 and 12, right?
Oh. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven.
All right, so Jacob saw in his dream a ladder that was set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And what was going on this ladder?
And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it.
So the angels of God are ascending and descending on it, meaning they're going up and down, right, from the heavens to the earth, and vice versa on this, what's described as a ladder here, right? Now, later on, because what this is talking about is pretty much just talking about those same pillars, the pillar of the cloud, the pillar of fire. It's talking about those same pillars, but it's describing it here as a ladder, right? And which is something that you use to travel up and down, right? Now, we know that the angels, they travel in chariots as well, but to come down off of these chariots and to go up into these chariots, right? What is being described here by Jacob to do that is a ladder, right? Because Jacob can only describe this in his best words, right? He doesn't know what that is, right? He never watched Star Trek, you know. he didn't know these terms that we know today, right? But we see that Christ, after he gives instructions to his apostles, he's taken up from the earth into heaven, right? In the same manner in which these angels are described as ascending and descending from heaven to earth and going up the same way, right? And so it would appear when we read about it here that Christ is being abducted, right, after he's been resurrected, and he's being received into a cloud. You can get that for me out in Acts chapter 1, verse 9 to 11.
This is Acts chapter 1, verse 9. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up. and the cloud received him out of their sight. And while
Right.
they
So Christ, when he was done speaking to them about the things concerning the kingdom, he was taken up and a cloud received him out of their sight. And I don't know about anybody that might be watching this video, right? But me personally, I've taken a plane before to get to another state. And when we went up in the cloud, it's not like we went into a whole nother vehicle or something. We just disappeared when we went into the cloud, you know? But what's being described here is that Christ went up into this cloud and then out of their sight. Couldn't see him no more from there on out, right? Go ahead.
The cloud received him up out of their sight, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel.
And by the way, that just tells you that cloud isn't just literally a cloud. It's not just your ordinary cloud that you see when you look up in the sky,
right,
on a cloudy day, right? Go ahead, though.
Which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This saying Yahweh shall, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven.
So these men in white apparel that were standing by the men of Galilee as they saw Yahweh get taken up into that cloud, into that chariot, that's what that really was. When they saw him go up, right, they said, hey, why are you just standing here watching this? He gonna come back in like manner as you seen him go up, right? Go ahead and bring that out. I know you got something.
Revelation 1:7, because Acts said, as the same manner you saw him leave, same manner you're gonna see him come. It says Revelation 1:7, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye
cometh
shall
with clouds. That ain't talking about just regular clouds there.
Yep.
That's talking about he's gonna come with chariots, right? We're gonna bring it out though. Go ahead though.
And every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, mine.
Right? And every eye, it says, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. What's that mean? Right? I know we're not going over that right now, but that's just proof that reincarnation is in the Bible. Because he hasn't come back yet, but it says when he does, they who pierced him are going to see him. All right, for another day. All right, but Matthew 24:30, right?
Look at Matthew 24:30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in clouds of heaven.
It's described in Revelation 1:7, right? They're going to see the Son of Man coming in the clouds. That's why they're going to be mourning. They're going to be mourning when they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, meaning with those chariots, which is about to describe. Go ahead.
Of heaven with power and great glory, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. And we understand through scripture that his elect, they're likened unto wheat, right? And they're being separated from the chaff, right? And I got a precept in Proverbs. He shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the earth to the other.
Con, you want to bring out that precept?
Con. Book of Proverbs 20:26, right? With the elect being likened unto wheat, right? In the parable of Matthew 13, it says this in Proverbs 20:26. A wise king scattereth the wicked, right? A wise king scattereth the wicked and bringeth the will over them.
See that?
So Yahweh, he scattered the wicked, right? He scattered these wicked Israelites into four corners of the world by the way of slavery, right? And he bringeth the will, which is these chariots, over them.
To gather them back up.
Yeah,
that's what's being described in Matthew 24.
Let's see. Yeah. Proverbs 20:26 in the NLT. says, a wise king scatters the wicked like wheat, like wheat, then runs his threshing wheel over them. His threshing, what is a threshing wheel for? That's used in the agriculture world where the farmer basically, you got that sickle, man, and he's separating the wheat and the chaff, right? Let's look at this real quick. Jeremiah 51:33. Because Babylon is known as that threshing floor. This is where this threshing gonna go down at, right here in America. It says, for thus saith the Lord, for Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon, this is America, is like a threshing floor, right? He says that he threshes the wicked like wheat, man. It is time to thresh her yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come, showing you, right, that most of this threshing is going to mainly happen right here in the daughter of Babylon. Because this is the threshing floor. This is where the nitty gritty go down. All right, you go ahead.
All right. But back at Matthew 24:30-31, right? And when that threshing happens, right, what we can see being described in Matthew 24:31, right? It says, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other, right? From the worldly perspective, bro, that's going to look, like I said earlier, it's going to look like an alien invasion. So if you haven't been laboring in this truth and trying to get that oil and keep your candle lit, or if you just, or when this truth was brought to you and you heard it and you treated it like it was, you know what I'm saying, like you treated it like it was off-brand cereal. You know what I'm saying?
He gonna treat you like off-brand cereal. He gonna treat you like that.
When you see this thing, it's gonna look like the end of the earth. It's gonna look like Independence Day. You know, you're not gonna know what to do. You're gonna go crazy. You might commit even more sin. Just looking at it. Just because you don't know what it is. You don't know what they're gonna be there for, right? But we who know and understand this truth, we know that these will be the angels coming to gather the elect. Like was talked about in Deuteronomy chapter 30 and verse 3. As a result of us repenting, right? A generation of our people repenting and coming back to the Most High God. If you aren't part of that, if you aren't partaking in that repenting, when you see this thing, you're going to be afraid. Right? And it's going to look like an alien abduction. It's going to look like a mass alien abduction at that. But it wouldn't be the first time we see that being described in the Bible. All right? Because like I said earlier, there's nothing new under the sun, right? We can actually see it in 2 Kings chapter 2 and 11. That's where it's talked about for the first time. All right? That's where we see our first alien abduction. Right? 1 Kings 2 and 11.
And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire.
Appeared a chariot of fire. And what happened after that chariot of fire appeared, man?
All right? And the horses of fire. And parted them asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven.
See that? It says Elijah, a chariot of fire appeared. And then right after this, Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. That sounds like alien abduction, don't it? That's what like the modern day worldly like, say someone didn't even understand the truth back in that time, right? And they seen that, right? Like another nation, a heathen seen that back in those times. Yep. You seen Elijah get taken up in a whirlwind by a chariot of fire. They would have lost their damn mind. Right? Whatever their breeches would have been unwearable after that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I think back in those days they just washed the breeches. If they like shit on themselves or pissed on themselves, they just washed them and put them back on, right? But they would have definitely done something like that if they had seen it, because they didn't know what that was. But it was an alien abduction. All right. Now we see it talked about again in Ezekiel chapter 3 and verse 12. Shortly after he sees these UFOs in a vision.
Says this. Then the Spirit took me up, and I heard behind me a voice of a great rushing, saying, "Blessed be the glory of God from His place."
Let's go all the way to verse 16.
I heard also the noise of the wings of the living creatures that touch one another, and the noise of the wheels over against them, and a noise of a great rushing. So the Spirit lifted me up and took me away.
Spirit lifted up Ezekiel and did what?
And took me away. And I went in bitterness in the heat of my spirit.
Look, you gotta think about this, man. Ezekiel said that wheel that he saw, it picked him up, it took him away, and he went away in bitterness, bro. and Ezekiel was a Levite, he was a priest of God, man.
Yeah.
He was a righteous man, bro. He was a good man. And even Ezekiel, when this happened to him, he says he went away in bitterness when he saw this. Like, I'm pretty sure anybody would.
Yeah. Man, what's happening? He wasn't expecting it. We expected it, but he not.
Bro.
Yeah, we was expecting it. I said, we expected it, but he wasn't ready for it. He wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. He wasn't expecting that.
Exactly, right? Like, even though we rejoice now when we see these things, it's a whole nother feeling when you get taken up by it, I'm pretty sure.
Like, super
right?
quick.
You're going to be leaving. Yeah, bro.
Yep.
You're going to go away in bitterness too. But go ahead, though. How else does it describe how he went away?
Oh, in the bitterness, in the heat, verse 14. In the heat of my spirit, but the hand of
in the heat of his spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, though.
But the hand of Yahweh was strong upon me. Then I came to the captivity at Tel Aviv.
Right.
That dwelt
the chariot brought him to them of the captivity of Tel Aviv, right? And he went away in bitterness in the heat of his spirit. And go on.
That dwelt by the river of Jabar, and I sat where they sat, and remained there astonished among them 7 days. And it came
after Ezekiel got dropped. So after Ezekiel got dropped off, he says he sat there astonished among them 7 days. You know what that means? I mean, Ezekiel was traumatized.
Yep.
That's what Ezekiel is saying.
Yep.
He says that this chariot took me away and sent me to them of the captivity of Tel Aviv. I went away in the bitterness and the heat of my spirit, right? And when I got there, I was traumatized for 7 days. That's what Ezekiel's saying from Ezekiel chapter 3, from verse 12 all the way to 15. All right? And it makes sense once you understand that Ezekiel, from a worldly perspective, he had partook in an alien abduction, right? He was a victim of alien abduction, right? Have you ever seen one of them documentaries about that? The people that say that ever said they got taken up by alien.
Yeah.
And they're ruined for life, man. They can't even go back and be a normal citizen anymore.
Yep. If I'm not mistaken, I believe in one of Deacon's videos, he has said that there's a documentary of this damn Edomite. He said that he went up into a damn chariot, and he said that the aliens were just like fucking harassing his ass, like poking him and shit. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I was.
Yeah.
Hey, yo. Hey,
bro.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's an unparalleled experience, man.
Hey, man. Hey, he hates Esau, bro. You know.
Hey, man. right? But Ezekiel, like, this ain't the only time. He talks about it in the vision too. He talks about in Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 3. We're gonna get that real quick. Where he talks about this same thing happening to him again in a vision. All right.
Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 3 says, and he put me forth. Well, verse 2 is describing the color.
Uh-huh.
The color of the angel. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward, fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. Man, that's a brownish color. The angel's brown, man. And he put forth the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my head. And the spirits lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me.
So Ezekiel says in the vision, he was lifted up between the earth and heaven. What's that mean? That he was levitating. All right, he was taken up, and he could see that he wasn't exactly close to the earth, nor was he probably above the clouds. All right. Go ahead, though.
And brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looked toward the north, where was a seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy.
Right, where was the idol? To show him an idol, right? And this ain't the last time Ezekiel talks about it. We can see it in Ezekiel chapter 11 and 1 as well.
Oh, what you want?
Ezekiel chapter 11 and 1.
That moreover the Spirit lifted me up and brought me unto the east gate of the Lord's house, which looketh eastward.
All right, so the Spirit, the same Spirit that's in those wheels, lifted him up again and brought him unto the east gate of the Lord's house, right? Go ahead.
Which looketh eastward, and behold, at the door of the gate 5 and 20 men, among whom I saw Jaazaniah, the son of Azor, and Pelatiah, the son of Benaiah, princes of the people. And said he,
yeah, at this point though, Ezekiel, he's used to getting, you know, pretty much taken everywhere by these UFOs.
Yep.
He's used to it at this point. He's just like, all right, okay, I'm here now.
Yep. Yep.
You know, he ain't getting traumatized no more about it. It's just normal to him now.
Exactly. Just another day in the office, man.
Yeah, just another day of the week.
Yep. Another day in the office.
Same thing.
And what you do today? Yep. What you do today? Oh man.
Oh, you know the usual.
Yep.
You know, get dropped off by a chariot.
Hey man, Lord willing, we stay diligent in His work, bro. Shit. We be in them chariots every day in the kingdom, man. Lord
Exactly. Another account I want to get is in Bel and the Dragon. Right? Story of Bel and the Dragon, contained in the Apocrypha, verse 33 to 39.
Bel and the Dragon, 33. Now there was in Jewry a prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. But the angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, go, carry the dinner that thou hast in Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den.
All right, so Habakkuk, the prophet, that's, you know, there's a book concerning Habakkuk and the minor prophets, right? That same prophet was visited by the angel of the Lord, which told him to go deliver dinner to Daniel while he was in the lion's den, right? That's what's going on here. Go ahead.
The angel of the Lord said unto Habakkuk, go carry the dinner thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den.
And this is the second time, right? So at this point, we can understand that Daniel had been he took frequent trips to the lion's den, man. It wasn't just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
All right, this is not the same account that we see in the book of Daniel. All right, this is another account. They just like throwing Daniel in the lion's den, right? But every time the Most High delivered him. But we're going to see how the Most High delivered him this time, right? Go ahead.
Habakkuk cried and say, O Lord. Oh, no. Verse 34. No, verse 35. And Habakkuk said, Lord, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. Then the angel of the Lord took him by the crown and bare him by the hair of his head, and through the vehemency of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den.
You see that? So the angel, like Habakkuk was like, man, I've never seen Babylon. And the angel of the Lord was like, no problem. took him up by the hair of his head and took him to Babylon. Right? Flew him over to Babylon. Go ahead, though.
Verse 37. Verse 37. And Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which God has sent thee. And Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O God, neither hast thou forsaken them that seek thee and love thee. So Daniel rose and did eat, and the angel of the Lord set Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. Upon the seventh day, the kings went to bewail Daniel, and when he came to
that's verse 39 was that was all the verse 39, right?
Okay.
Great, verse 39. So pretty much after Daniel 8, the angel took Habakkuk back to his own place again immediately. Right? And not just in the sense of right away, but that's how fast he got back to his own place. Being that we know how fast these chariots travel. It's talked about as the appearance of lightning when these things move. When they go forth, right? But you know, like I said, we were trying to make it a short lesson. And pretty much I think we've explained pretty much for the most part why we can see these things out here in today's time and being reported on the news and all these sightings and things like that, because and the meaning behind them through a biblical perspective, we can understand what these things are.
But before we end, there's one thing I don't want my brothers and sisters to be ignorant of, right? Neither did Paul. It's 1 Thessalonians Chapter 4 and 13. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that you sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Yahushua died and rose again, even so them which sleep in Yahushua will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of Yahweh, by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds.
See that?
These chariots, man.
Chariots, bro.
To meet the Lord in the air. Why? Because Psalm 68 says that in the midst, the Lord is in those chariots, man. All right? To meet the Lord in the air. And so shall we be ever with the Lord. Wherefore, comfort one another with these words.
All right? And it's a comforting thing to hear. It's a comforting thing to hear that we're going to come out of this captivity, and it's going to be through divine, pretty much through divine intervention. because our people have tried everything, or what seems like everything, other than repenting to get out of this captivity, right? We've tried marching, we tried, you know, separating ourselves and being, you know, having our own economy in a way. You can see that with Black Wall Street as a main example. We've tried, you know, forming our own militia, and we can see that that's failed, and it continues to fail. All right. So it kind of gives you the idea, like that's been said before by the wise men of our nation, that the only way for us to be redeemed out of this place, out of the place of our captivity, and to be restored as a nation, is by divine intervention. And by what method of divine intervention? Through alien invasion. Something that's looked at as like a hoax. You know, you got to be a crazy person to believe in this. But when it happens, it's going to be something that, you know, that you look forward to, because you understand that this is how, you know, the Most High is going to redeem his people through Christ, through his angels. All these things work out for our good when we love the Most High God, we who are called, right?
Right.
But you know, hopefully the brothers and sisters that watch this, they can just get a basic or a better understanding of, you know, when we see these things that are called UFOs and flying saucers in the skies, what these things are from a biblical perspective, and not to be afraid of them. Don't be dismayed like the heathens. You know, you got to understand that these things are for your good when you see them. But to understand that, you have to be keeping the commandments. All right. But with that, I want to say call Allah.
Abanawa
I
Yahweh.
want to say call Allah. Abanawa Yahweh, Ba'ashem Hamashiach Shai. It's all praises to our Heavenly Father, in the name of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. With that, Shalom.
Shalom, Israel.